For 2 decades, Cameron Diaz said nothing. No tell-all interview. No memoir chapter. Not one mention of Justin Timberlake's name in front of a single camera, as if she could will an entire era of her life into silence. Now, closing in on 50, with a few silver strands showing and eyes that have clearly survived more than their share of storms, she's finally talking. She's described the paparazzi years that nearly broke her. The fabricated tabloid stories that sent her to therapy on repeat, just to remember how to breathe. And she's confirmed something nobody could pin down for 18 years, she once thought she'd marry Justin Timberlake. Then came a betrayal that took her the better part of a decade to get over. This is the real story behind one of the 2000's most watched romances, the surveillance, the lawsuits, the one party that changed everything. And why Cameron Diaz's long silence said as much as any interview ever could. Nobody saw this couple coming. A golden-haired action star and a boy band singer trying to reinvent himself. On paper, it shouldn't have worked. It started at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards in April 2003, an event built entirely on chaos and bad taste. Cameron Diaz, 30 years old and riding high off Charlie's Angels, took the stage to present Best Burp. A category she'd actually won herself 2 years earlier. The winner that year was 22-year-old Justin Timberlake, freshly out of NSYNC, freshly out of a very public split from Britney Spears, and actively trying to rebrand himself as a serious artist. On stage, they exchanged nothing more than a polite glance. Backstage was a different story, the two ended up in an actual burping contest. Ridiculous, sure. But that shared, unfiltered sense of humor flattened every wall between them instantly. Diaz already had a reputation as one of the funniest people in the room, full stop, gender aside. The 9-year age gap between them evaporated somewhere around round 3 of competitive burping. They left the party hand in hand, paparazzi flashing away, and by morning, half of America's newspapers were running the photo. A power couple was born. Matching denim, matching highlighted hair, matching grins on every red carpet they touched. By July 2003, Diaz wasn't just showing up to support Timberlake's Justified and Stripped tour with Christina Aguilera, she was practically part of the crew, dancing through the crowd like any other fan. What stunned people wasn't that they were together. It was how loudly they refused to hide it. Hand-holding, kissing, private jet runs to Mexico. At a moment when most A-listers guarded their relationships like state secrets, these two did the opposite. The cost of that openness arrived fast. Every gesture, every smile, even the rings on Cameron's fingers became headline fodder. By 2004, the couple wasn't just dating under a microscope, they were at war with the British tabloid press. It started in July 2004, when News of the World ran a front-page bombshell claiming Timberlake had cheated on Diaz with a model named Lucy Clarkson during his UK tour. Clarkson's paid account included supposed secret dates, late-night texts, and a hotel room rendezvous, vivid, specific, and, as it turned out, entirely invented. Timberlake didn't sit on it. He hired attorney Keith Schilling, the same lawyer who'd won Naomi Campbell's landmark privacy case, and sued. It was a bold move for a male pop star at the time, opening himself up to a year-plus of legal scrutiny rather than letting the story quietly die. He and Diaz kept appearing together publicly the entire time, hand in hand, as if daring the rumors to stick. They didn't. In August 2005, London's High Court heard the newspaper formally retract every claim. Clarkson herself issued an apology through her own lawyer, admitting she'd fabricated the entire story for a payday. News of the World paid undisclosed damages, which Timberlake donated to charity, and Clarkson was ordered to return every cent she'd been paid. He didn't just win the case, he sent a message. The tabloids weren't done. In May 2005, The Sun published its own scandal, a claim that Diaz had been caught in a passionate 3-minute kiss with married TV producer Shane Nickerson while Timberlake was preparing for throat surgery. The story painted a damning picture. A secret embrace behind bushes in Santa Monica, captured by a long lens. Diaz followed Timberlake's playbook exactly. She sued, using the same lawyer, and the truth that emerged in court was almost comically mundane. It had been a goodbye hug between colleagues, photographed from an angle that twisted it into something it never was. The Sun apologized and paid damages and legal costs. But the story had originated with the National Enquirer, so Diaz sued them too. A battle that dragged on until February 2007 before ending in another apology and settlement. The irony was brutal. Every lawsuit they filed to protect their privacy generated more headlines, more cameras, more scrutiny. Fighting the media made them more newsworthy, which made them more hunted, which gave them more to fight. The cycle fed itself. That cycle reached a breaking point on November 6, 2004, outside the Chateau Marmont. Timberlake and Diaz stepped out after an evening at the hotel, expecting a quiet street and a few minutes of normalcy. Instead, two photographers, Saul Lazo and Jose Gonzalez, sprang out with cameras raised, no warning, no distance. Diaz reacted instantly. She went after Lazo, struck him, and grabbed for his camera while Timberlake shouted at him from a few feet away. He shoved Gonzalez as Diaz tried, and failed, to grab the second camera. Both photographers ran. Timberlake yelled after them to come back and finish it. Days later, Lazo and Gonzalez sued the couple for assault and theft, insisting they'd kept a safe distance throughout. Representatives for Diaz and Timberlake fired back, calling it a straightforward ambush on a dark, empty street and framing the couple's response as pure self-defense. Diaz handed the seized camera over to police. Us Weekly later bought and published the full photo sequence, including, in a detail nobody could have scripted, a shot of Timberlake wearing a sweatshirt that read, "Criminal." The LAPD opened an investigation but filed no charges, and the case eventually settled out of court. What it proved, though, was simple. The gap between covering a celebrity and stalking one had basically disappeared. For all the chaos, their happiest stretch was genuinely happy. In 2005, they co-starred in Saturday Night Live's now legendary Barry Gibb talk show, sketch, Diaz as the Queen of England, Timberlake doing a pitch-perfect Bee Gees parody, and crew members remember them barely able to keep a straight face. They later voiced characters together in Shrek the Third, even as cracks were already starting to show beneath the surface. The biggest tell was marriage, or rather, their shared allergy to it. Asked repeatedly about wedding plans, Diaz would joke about her commitment issues, Timberlake would crack wise about dress sizes holding steady for the next 15 years. Funny on the surface. Underneath, it was two fiercely independent people circling a conversation neither wanted to finish. By late 2006, distance had crept in for real. Rumors swirled that Timberlake had grown close to Scarlett Johansson while filming the What Goes Around Comes Around video, a development that reportedly stung Diaz. Add packed tour schedules, overlapping film shoots, and relentless press, and the relationship simply wore down. On January 11, 2007, a short, carefully worded joint statement confirmed what fans had feared. The relationship was over, framed as a mutual, friendly decision made with love and respect on both sides. It read like a clean break. It wasn't one. About a week later, at Prince's exclusive Golden Globes afterparty, the kind of guest list where Prince himself was just another name in the room, Timberlake showed up looking every bit the star at the top of his game. And there, in front of a room full of industry insiders, he started flirting with a brown-haired actress who'd soon become his wife, Jessica Biel. Then Diaz walked in. By most accounts, she'd come expecting the warm, post-breakup friendship their public statement had promised. What she got instead was the sight of her ex visibly charmed by another woman, in plain view of everyone who mattered in Hollywood. Witnesses described her expression going still, the practiced smile disappearing for just a moment before she turned and walked away. She reportedly pulled Timberlake aside for a private conversation that lasted around 40 minutes. Neither has ever detailed what was said. What onlookers do recall is that Timberlake slammed his hand against a cabinet on his way out, and Diaz stayed behind alone. Whatever the timeline really was, it raised an uncomfortable possibility, that Timberlake may have already been moving towards something new before the breakup was even public, and that Diaz might have learned about it the same way everyone else did, in real time, at a party. After that night, Diaz went quiet. No statements, no interviews, just a retreat from public view while she processed it privately, the way she'd always handled pain. Some who knew her said she leaned on close friends. Nobody got the full picture, because she never gave it to them. What makes this breakup stand out isn't the drama, it's what came after. These two didn't disappear from each other's lives. In 2011, 4 years after that brutal night at the Golden Globes party, Diaz personally brought Timberlake on to co-star in Bad Teacher, including a deliberately absurd sex scene the two reportedly couldn't get through without cracking up. Diaz later told Us Weekly that they'd always made each other laugh, calling him a genuine comedy talent. In 2008, when Diaz's father passed away, Timberlake showed up to the funeral, quietly, without comment to the press, sat in the back, offered a hug, and left. No statement needed. The gesture said everything. They'd loved each other. They'd hurt each other. In the end, they chose to stay decent to one another anyway. Timberlake didn't take long to find his next chapter. He and Jessica Biel got together soon after the split, briefly broke up in 2011, then found their way back to each other. In October 2012, they married in an intimate Italian villa ceremony, a far cry from the splashy Hollywood events of his earlier years. Friends said the relationship brought out a more settled version of him. Their first son, Silas Randall Timberlake, arrived in April 2015, Randall a nod to Justin's father and his own middle name. A second son, Phineas, was born in near total secrecy in July 2020. Talking about fatherhood on Ellen in early 2021, Timberlake couldn't hide how much joy it had brought him, joking about the sleep he wasn't getting and the gratitude that made up for it. Both boys have been kept almost entirely out of the public eye, a boundary Timberlake clearly learned the hard way. The road hasn't been flawless. Around 2024, Timberlake started dealing with serious, unexplained health problems. Nerve pain on stage, crushing fatigue, moments where finishing his tour felt genuinely uncertain. In July 2025, he told fans on Instagram that he'd been diagnosed with Lyme disease, a tick-borne illness with a brutal physical and emotional toll. He said he wasn't sharing it for sympathy, just to explain what had really been happening behind the scenes. The illness reportedly strained his marriage before the diagnosis came through, with unexplained behavior and trust issues creeping in, and rumors of an ultimatum from Biel. Once doctors had an answer, though, things reportedly shifted. The couple worked through it together, took family trips, and by the end of 2025, sources close to them described a marriage that had come out the other side stronger, with Timberlake wrapping a 2-year world tour and turning his focus toward home. Diaz, meanwhile, didn't rush into anything. It took her 8 years to find lasting love again, and when she did, it wasn't another movie star or musician chasing headlines. It was Benji Madden, guitarist for Good Charlotte, introduced to her by matchmaker Nicole Richie, married to Benji's twin brother, Joel. 8 months of dating led to a proposal in late 2014 and a surprise backyard wedding in January 2015, with around 90 guests, Drew Barrymore as bridesmaid, Reese Witherspoon and Gwyneth Paltrow among the close friends in attendance. No spectacle, no paparazzi. Exactly the kind of wedding Diaz had always wanted. Then she did something even more striking. She walked away from acting almost entirely. She announced a break in 2014 and confirmed full retirement by 2018, trading red carpets for motherhood. She and Madden have 2 children, Rad Dix and Cardinal, along with supporting her husband's ventures and writing books. A genuinely quiet life, after years of having none. In 2025, after more than a decade away, Diaz returned to the screen in Netflix's Back in Action alongside Jamie Foxx. Reports floated a $45 million payday across 2 projects, but those close to her insisted money wasn't the real motivator. Benji, by most accounts, was the one who encouraged her back, reminding her she could still do this without the old pressures attached. She's stayed selective. She passed on a My Best Friend's Wedding sequel despite interest from Julia Roberts and Dermot Mulroney, choosing instead projects that genuinely pulled her. Reprising Princess Fiona in Shrek 5, due in 2026, and joining Jonah Hill and Keanu Reeves in an upcoming project. By every account, she's not chasing Hollywood anymore. She's choosing exactly how much of it she wants. For years, Cameron Diaz treated Justin Timberlake's name like a closed book. Promoting Back in Action, asked gently about that era, she didn't deflect. She sat up, took a breath, and said things she'd previously only told her therapist. The media pressure during those years, she said, went far beyond ordinary gossip, photographers in trees outside her bedroom window, tabloids manufacturing her life story for profit, the sense of being exposed every time she stepped outside. She described nearly losing her grip and needing therapy, repeatedly, just to relearn how to breathe normally. But the paparazzi weren't the deepest wound. The real pain, she said, was admitting the truth about the relationship itself. That she had genuinely believed she'd marry him, that she'd built her future around that assumption before it collapsed. Without naming specifics, she acknowledged that sometimes people make choices that hurt others, and that all you can do is accept it. Many took the remark as the closest she's come to confirming the